The man at my father's funeral was crying harder than anyone. I didn't recognize him. None of us did. He stood in the back row, tall, gray-haired, sobbing into his hands like he'd lost the most important person in his life. After the service, I watched him place a single photograph on my father's casket. Then he walked away without speaking to anyone. 3 weeks later, I learned that man's name was James Holloway, and my father had left him everything. $1.4 million, the house I grew up in, the cabin on the lake, every penny of my father's life savings. My sister screamed. My brother threatened lawsuits. My mother, my father's ex-wife, called it the final betrayal. But I needed to understand. I needed to know who James Holloway was and why my father loved him more than he loved us. What I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about my family and about myself. My name is Thomas. Most people call me Tom. I'm 54 years old, and until my father's death, I thought I understood who he was. William Porter was a quiet man, a carpenter by trade. He built houses for 40 years in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he built them well. People still point to homes on the east side and say, "Bill Porter built that one." He was never wealthy, but he was careful. He saved. He invested. He lived simply in the same house since 1978. Daddy and Mama divorced when I was 12. It wasn't dramatic. They just stopped loving each other, or maybe never really did. Mama moved to Nashville. My brother Kevin, my sister Diane, and I stayed with Daddy. He raised us alone, cooked our dinners, helped with homework, came to every baseball game, every school play, every graduation. He wasn't affectionate, never said, "I love you" much, but he showed up, always. As we got older, we drifted. Kevin moved to Atlanta, got into finance, made money, got busy. Diane married young, had 4 kids, and lived in chaos 20 minutes away, but somehow never had time to visit. And me? I stayed in Knoxville, became a high school history teacher. I saw Daddy every Sunday for dinner until about 5 years ago, when my own life got complicated. Divorce, new job, excuses. The Sunday dinners became monthly, then every few months, then holidays only. Daddy never complained. He just waited. When he got the cancer diagnosis in early 2024, he didn't tell us for 3 months. By the time he did, it was stage 4, liver, inoperable. He died 6 weeks later. I was holding his hand at the end. He looked at me with those calm gray eyes and said, "Don't be angry, son. Just try to understand." I didn't know what he meant. Now I do. The will reading was a disaster. We gathered at Mr. Hutchinson's office downtown. Me, Kevin, Diane, and Mama, who had driven from Nashville despite not speaking to Daddy in 15 years. I expected a simple estate, the house split 3 ways among the kids, maybe some money divided equally, standard stuff. Mr. Hutchinson opened a folder and began reading. "To my son Thomas, I leave my woodworking tools and my father's pocket watch." I nodded. That felt right. Daddy knew I loved those tools. "To my brother Kevin, I leave $10,000, which is the amount he borrowed in 2015 and never repaid." Kevin's face went red. Diane stifled a laugh. "To my daughter Diane, I leave $10,000 with the hope she will use it for her children's education rather than her husband's gambling debts." Diane's mouth fell open. Mama looked horrified. Mr. Hutchinson continued. "And finally, to my ex-wife Barbara, I leave nothing, as she received more than enough in the divorce and has since lived quite comfortably on bitterness alone." The room was dead silent. "And finally, To James Arthur Holloway of Maryville, Tennessee, I leave the remainder of my estate, including my home, my lake cabin, and all financial accounts. James has been more of a son to me than my own blood ever managed to be. I hope he knows how much his loyalty meant to an old man." Kevin exploded. "Who the hell is James Holloway? This is insane. Dad had dementia. He didn't know what he was doing." "Your father was of sound mind," Mr. Hutchinson said calmly. "I've known Bill for 30 years. He knew exactly what he was doing. We'll contest this. This Holloway person obviously manipulated him." Mama nodded vigorously. "It's elder abuse, plain and simple." But I sat there quietly, my father's words echoing in my head. "Don't be angry, son. Just try to understand." I needed to find James Holloway. It took me 3 days to track him down. James Holloway, 60 years old, retired firefighter, lived alone in a small house in Maryville, about 20 miles south of Knoxville. I drove there on a Thursday afternoon without telling Kevin or Diane. I didn't know what I was looking for. Answers, explanations, maybe someone to blame. The house was modest, clean white siding, a vegetable garden in the front yard, an American flag hanging by the door. I knocked. The door opened, and I recognized him immediately. The man from the funeral, the one who had cried harder than anyone. "Mr. Holloway?" I asked. He looked at me with sad, knowing eyes. "You're Tom, Bill's youngest." "Yes, sir." He nodded slowly. "I was wondering when you'd come. I suppose your brother and sister are planning to sue me." "They're considering it." He smiled slightly. "I wouldn't blame them, but they don't know the whole story. Neither do you." He stepped aside. "Come in, Tom. It's time you learned the truth about your father." The house was simple inside, comfortable. On the mantel, I noticed a framed photograph. My father and James standing together in front of the lake cabin, arms around each other's shoulders. They looked happy. Really happy. "How long did you know my father?" I asked. James sat down heavily. 42 years. I blinked. 42 years? That's my entire life. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is." James poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from me. "What I'm about to tell you, Tom," he said slowly, "your father never wanted you to know, but he's gone now, and I think you deserve the truth." I waited. "Your father and I met in 1982. I was 18. He was 26. I was working construction, just starting out. He took me under his wing, taught me everything about carpentry." He paused, staring at his coffee. "We fell in love, Tom." The room seemed to tilt. I couldn't speak. "It was a different time," he continued quietly. 1982, Tennessee. You didn't talk about things like that. You couldn't. We both knew we had to hide it. Your father married your mother because it was expected, because his parents demanded grandchildren, because he thought he could make it work." James shook his head. "He tried so hard to be what everyone wanted him to be, but he couldn't stop loving me, and I couldn't stop loving him." I sat frozen, trying to process what I was hearing. "We never stopped seeing each other," James said, "for 42 years. Through his marriage, through his divorce, through everything. We were careful, secret, but we were always there for each other. When your parents divorced, I thought maybe we could finally be together openly. But Bill was scared. He was scared you kids would hate him. He was scared his clients would stop hiring him. He was scared of losing everything he'd built." James' voice broke. "So we stayed hidden, all these years. I was there every week. I was there when he got sick. I was there when he died, but I could never be there publicly. I could never stand beside him as what I really was. His partner, his love, his everything. I sat in James Holloway's living room for 3 hours. He showed me photographs I'd never seen, letters my father had written him over 4 decades, birthday cards, anniversary notes, a love story hidden in boxes and whispered phone calls. He showed me the photograph he'd placed on my father's casket. It was the two of them, young, in front of the lake cabin the year they built it together, 1985. That cabin was ours, James said. Bill bought the land. I helped him build it. Every board, every nail. It was the only place we could truly be ourselves. I understood now why my father left him everything. I understood why James had cried so hard at the funeral. And I understood my father's final words to me. Don't be angry, just try to understand. I drove home that night in silence. My head was spinning. My heart ached, not with anger, with grief. Grief for the life my father never got to live. Grief for the love he had to hide. Grief for all the years I could have known him better and didn't. Kevin and Diane hired an attorney the next day. They were determined to contest the will. I refused to join them. "Are you insane?" Kevin shouted over the phone. "That man stole our inheritance. Dad was obviously being manipulated." "James didn't steal anything. Dad loved him." Silence. "What are you talking about?" "I'm saying I won't help you destroy something Dad spent his whole life protecting." Diane called next. "Tom, think about what you're saying. You're defending a stranger over your own family." "He wasn't a stranger to Dad. He was family. More than any of us, apparently." They contested the will anyway, without me. The case went before a probate judge 4 months later. Mr. Hutchinson presented my father's documented wishes. James's attorney presented 42 years of evidence, letters, photographs, financial records showing they had shared expenses on the cabin since 1985. Kevin and Diane's attorney tried to claim undue influence. Cold. The judge wasn't impressed. "This court finds no evidence of manipulation or incompetence," she declared. "What it does find is evidence of a profound, decades-long relationship that Mr. Porter clearly valued above all else. The will stands as written." Kevin and Diane lost. They spent $35,000 in legal fees and received nothing beyond what Dad had originally left them. They haven't spoken to me since. I'm okay with that. I visit James every few weeks now. We sit on his porch, drink coffee, and talk about my father. He tells me stories I never knew, adventures they had, jokes they shared, quiet moments that meant everything. Through James, I'm finally getting to know my dad, the real one, not the quiet carpenter who never said "I love you," but the man who loved deeply, sacrificed everything, and spent his whole life afraid of being rejected by his own children. Last month, James gave me something. It was a letter my father had written in his final weeks, addressed to me. "Dear Tom, if you're reading this, you found James, and if you found James, you found the truth. I'm sorry I never told you. I was a coward. I spent my whole life terrified of what you'd think of me. But I hope you understand. I didn't love you any less because I loved him. I loved you both with everything I had. I just couldn't say it out loud. Please don't hate me, son, and please don't hate James. He gave me the only happiness I ever truly knew. I hope someday you find that kind of love too. Your father, Bill." I read that letter in my car, parked in James' driveway, and I cried for an hour. Not because I was angry, Not because I felt betrayed, because I finally understood. My father left his fortune to a stranger, but James Holloway was never a stranger. He was the love of my father's life, and for 42 years, while we were too busy with our own lives to notice, James was the one who was there, every week, every holiday, every moment that mattered. I don't blame my father for his choices. I don't blame James for accepting what he was owed. I blame myself for not paying attention, for not asking questions, for not being there enough to know my own father's heart. Kevin and Diane still think I'm a traitor. Mama refuses to discuss it. But James and I have Sunday dinners now, at Dad's old house, in the kitchen where I grew up. We cook together. We tell stories. We keep Dad's memory alive the way it should be, with honesty. It only took 54 years, but I finally know my father, and I love him more now than I ever did.